The Carrick and Suir Motor Club returned to the championship as hosts of rounds 5 and 6 of the Connaught Competition Engines Hillclimb and Sprint Championship 2011 for the Keane Trophy. The club ran two venues close to Piltown, County Kilkenny. The Saturday Hillclimb at Temple Orme featured two tight hairpins, while the Sunday Hill at Owning was more a test of straight line speed with some natural kinks and a few chicanes added for safety. Simon McKinley was staggeringly quick, setting the fastest time of the day after only 2 runs. Brendan Keane and Rory Stevens had a close battle to decide the runner-up spot. Keane won out by just over 0.2 of a second from Stevens. Brendan also claimed the award for first in Class 7, sponsored by Crocora Mills. Rory won 3B, sponsored by A&E Motorsport. John Mahon has finally found the beat in his DJ, with the injector problems he's been suffering sorted. He was 4th overall and first in the imprints.org Class 6. Ray Cunningham was 5th overall and winner of Class 1, sponsored by the Daly family in memory of Terence. Elaine O'Reilly claimed 2nd, having sorted the teething problems she experienced last time in her freshly tuned Mini. Elaine was just over 1/10 of a second ahead of Nigel Bryson in the increasingly popular class. Stephen O'Shea had to change the gearbox on his Starlet on the night before the event. His perseverance was rewarded with 4th in the category. The remaining 4 drivers in the class finished within 2 seconds of each other. Tony Banville in a Swift, Seamus Hobbs in a Corsa, Marty Kinsella also in the Swift, and Trish Daly making the switch to a Mini. James Doherty was the fastest in Class 2, which was sponsored by the hosting club. He was also 9th overall. Tommy Murphy headed the front-wheel drive challenge in the class in his Civic, ahead of last year's class champion John Bradley. Owen Cardiff double drove another Corsa with Shade Delaney. Owen was best by just 0.13 of a second. Brendan Quinn was just over a second behind them in his Corolla, with Tom Kennelly chasing in his Punto a bit further back. Ian Quinn had his rear-engine Mini back together after going off in Clare. He won Class 3A, sponsored by Carnew Tyre Centre, and was 8th overall. Peter Boggin was back in the Zaxpeed Escort, having skipped the County Clare events, while John Whitley continues the legend of the Golf GTI in 3rd place. Trevor Cullen continues the G3 story in true style, 2nd in 3B and 6th overall. Jim Butler keeps the history books open for the Renault 5 Maxi, 3rd in the class. The MGB of Mick O'Shea was the winner of Class 4 on handicap. John Farrell took 2nd in his Mark 1 Escort, and Sean Murray was 3rd in his Lotus Elan in the class sponsored by the Motor Enthusiast Club. Colin Dunphy won Class 5, sponsored by the Wexford Motor Club. Breed Harper in the Formula V was 2nd. John Byrne was 2nd in Class 6 and 7th overall, narrowly beating Edwin Reinhardt, who was 3rd. Deirdre Delaney was next, and fastest woman of the day. It was great to see Dermot Nolan back in action after his big off in the Galway event. He got the last overall point in the championship, and the award for 2nd in Class 7. Simon Reid in a Civic just edged out Patrick Haughey by 0.6 of a second in Class 8, sponsored by the host of the next championship rounds, the Carlow Car Club. Georgie Bell wasn't far off them in his Civic, followed by the spectacular escort-sharing duo of Niall Fitzpatrick and John Murphy. Alan Doherty's potent rear-wheel drive Corsa finished ahead of Seamus Anderson's Escort in Rally Class 9. Pascal O'Shea put in a great performance in his Escort Mark II. Results for Sunday were still provisional at the time of publishing this. Sunday's Hill saw the first appearance of the 1100cc Cento Challenge cars, and they mixed well with the other up to 1400cc Class 1 cars. John Courtney did remarkably well, finishing 7th of the 12 cars that recorded times in that class. Joe Courtney was the 2nd of these, just 6/10 back and 9th in class. Aidan Courtney probably showed a little too much respect for the borrowed car, which incidentally was driven home afterwards. He was a further 3 seconds back. Ray Cunningham continued to show the ultimate potential of a Class 1 car, winner of the group and 8th overall this time. Nigel Bryson upheld Fiat honour, 2nd in Class 1, catching Elaine O'Reilly, who was also surpassed by Stephen O'Shea on the Sunday Hill. William Power, who works Saturdays, was quick to get into the groove on Sunday. Tony Banville was 6th in the class. Trish Daly split the Centos, fulfilling a lifelong ambition to race a Mini. Marty Kinsella completed the top 10 in the class, and Billy Power made it a dozen finishers after Willie Fogarty rolled his Auto Bianchi on Sunday's first run. Tommy Murphy was delighted to finish just a hair's breadth ahead of James Doherty for Class 2 honours on the second day of the weekend. Kieran Curran won the Battle of the Courses, third in class ahead of John Bradley's older version, and Owen Cardiff sharing a similar car with Shay Delaney. Brendan Quinn was 7th in the Corolla. Ian Quinn's Mini held off 2 escorts embroiled in their own battle. Peter Boggin got the better of David James in the end by a mere 600th of a second. John Whitley followed them in the Golf. Trevor Cullen was 4th overall and won Class 3B. Jim Butler was 2nd this time in the Renault, and Rory Stevens was 3rd in his Radical, but sometimes may be subject to change. Mick O'Shea was again fastest on handicap in Class 4 from John Farrell, who was fastest on scratch. 3rd was Sean Murray in the rare Lotus Elan plus 2S. Eugene French was back out in his V after being absent from the Clare and Galway events. Reid Harper was 2nd in her similar car. John Mahon had to play second fiddle to John Byrne on Sunday. Edwin Reinhardt was 3rd, with Deirdre Delaney 4th and fastest of the women again. Patrick Haughey reasserted himself at the top of Class 8. Simon Reid was 2nd this time in the Civic. Richard Cleary was 3rd in a Corsa, followed very closely by Eddie Lyons' Integra. Pascal O'Shea was 5th in the Mark II Escort. Richard Moore is a half a second ahead of Georgie Bell's Honda Civic. John Murphy and Niall Fitzpatrick could hardly be closer, sharing the Mark II Escort. Just 500ths of a second was the margin in John's favour. Ger O'Brien failed to record a time in his Renault Clio, but looked quick here. Alan Doherty was pushed hard in Class 8 by Seamus O'Grady in the front-wheel drive Escort, and Joe Lacey in one of the newer versions of the Honda Civic, headed home Seamus Anderson's Mark II Escort. John Hackett hadn't far to travel to win Class 10 in his Mini, and Gemma Curley was 3rd of the women and 2nd in class in her Corsa. Dermot Nolan was 5th overall and again got the award for 2nd in Class 7. Brendan Keane is now the strongest challenger to McKinley in the championship and keeping the younger Dubliner honest. Keane claimed 2nd place again by almost a second and a half from John Byrne. Simon was in top form, however. His precision between the cones was remarkable, as was his 5-second plus winning margin. It's time for some sprints now in Carlow in just 3 weeks' time.